Oh, like a true weirdo. I was like really crooning a song from Mulan right before I hit the record button. I'm a normal fantasy NBA podcaster. Hi, everybody. I'm Dan Vesperis. This is Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball presented by FanDuel and the FanDuel Sportsbook. And I assume the FanDuel Sportsbook app as well. Presenting sponsor here on the show and everything at Believe Network. You can find me on Twitter at Dan Vesperis, and I hope that at some point during today's show, I will convince you to hit that like button and the subscribe button on what we got going on here at Old Man Squad and Total. Today, we are looking at ADP shifts. Why is the first question. Do we care about ADP shifts? Well, because they tell you about trends developing in the fantasy landscape. Players that are moving, players whose ADPs are on the move, it tends to mean that they're actually going even farther in the direction that their ADP is moving. Because remember, and I don't want to do 3 minutes on how averages work, but if there are 100 drafts done where a guy is drafted at 40, and then 100 drafts done where the guy's drafted at 30, the ADP is only going to move to 35. So it's, in that instance, half and half. It's only going to tell half the story. Our job is to figure out what it all means and whether or not it's creating any kind of value bubbles, whether good or bad, on the players involved. Of course, for YouTube, we got to get some search engine optimization going on. So, are they going to be steals? Are they going to be busts? Or something in between? Let's simplify fantasy basketball and look at the ADP risers over the last week. Jalen Green is the biggest notable name on the board. He moved up 3.7 slots with a new ADP of 68.4. You guys have generally heard over the years my feelings on Jalen Green, and he has, to his credit, improved in some ways. His free throw percent, for instance, has gotten better. The problem for Jalen Green is that his field goal percent, the impact that has, is significantly worse than the positive impact that his free throw numbers putting up these days. So usage bumps for Green, yes, obviously they're a good thing because more points, threes, and assists are counterbalanced by more turnovers and more negative impact field goal percent. But even if you just called it a 1-to-1 kind of thing, you still get 3 good for every 2 bad. And potentially a little bit better free throw, which is like a tenth of a good. More minutes would be good, but he played 33 minutes a game in Houston last year, so I don't know how much more Phoenix could possibly heap onto him. He was also the lead dog in Houston last year. He and Alperen Sengun, and now he goes to a place where Devin Booker is very clearly ahead of him in the pecking order. And I guess you'd hope that maybe Jalen Green could find 18-ish shots as the number 2, which is possible because Kevin Durant and Booker both took about 19 last year. So if you kind of push it all together, but, Dylan Brooks went with, and Phoenix didn't actually, they cleared out Durant and Beal. They brought in Green and Brooks, so you'd hope that there'd be enough. I guess we don't really know for sure, but I would assume so. I just don't see the path for Green to get all that much better unless he just magically starts to be a better fantasy player. 9-cat last year was outside the top 120. 8-cat, he was right around top 100. And if you, again, basically make him the best possible version of himself, a Jalen Green punt field goal 8-cat team was right around number 67, which is what we just talked about. That's where his ADP is at. So this prediction, this ADP on Green, is basically for a punt field goal 8 category league. Guess what? As we just talked about with Adam Stock 2 days ago, if you are punting field goal in an 8 category league, you are not a trendsetter. I would invite you guys to watch that live mock show that Stock and I did that aired on Wednesday on the YouTube page. I can't remember when it dropped on the traditional pod feed. But Adam talked through this concept of look, if you're going to do a punt, you want to make sure you're doing a punt where you're able to flip the board in a way where you can get your guys. Everybody and their mother is punting field goal percent and turnovers. It's basically anybody that takes a high turnover or a low field goal guard or Wemby in the first round. I mean, you can go back, look at who's going in the first round by ADP these days or by pre-rank, whatever's easier for you. Wemby is a low field goal percent center. People tend to do a guard build with him. Cade, people tend to do a guard build. Anthony Edwards, people tend to do a guard build. Trae Young, guard build. Booker, Harden, people tend to do guard builds. Even if not every one of those teams leans into the hard guard build, Harden is a punt turnover guy. So is Trae Young. So is Cade. Field goal guys would be Wemby, Trae, probably Harden also. And suddenly you end up with like almost half or maybe even half of the teams in your league are all doing the same damn build. And you're all scratching and clawing for frickin' Jalen Green in the 6th round. Flip the board another way. I don't like Jalen Green at this spot. This means that he's going even earlier than that. And we talked about it on the pre-rank show. He just keeps getting pushed up and up and up because everybody's doing the same damn thing. Do something else. Denny Avdia, on the other hand, he's getting pushed up the board 2.9 slots to 57.1 because of just straight hype, which is fun. I'll admit, the Denny Avdia thing is a fun hype train kind of story. It is extremely disappointing because no one's going to get Denny that actually wants him. But at the same time, he was a super fun fantasy player to roster down the stretch last year when, much like Josh Giddey type run at the end of the year, Avdia averaged 26 points, 10 boards, 5.5 assists, 3 threes, 1.3 steals on 51-83 splits over the last month and a half of the NBA season. I don't think that's where he's going to be this year because he did a lot of that damage when Simons was resting and Jeremy Grant was resting, and it was just Avdia and Shaedon Sharpe. And now Grant is back at least to start the year. But, I mean, how long is Jeremy Grant even going to last? Denny Avdia definitely has a pathway to top 40 fantasy value this season, maybe even a path higher than that if the percentages happen to hold, although I don't think the free throw number is going to stick where that was. I don't think he's going to hit 3 threes a game for the entire season. But, I mean, he could really be an 8-cap monster because turnovers are his biggest issue. They always have been, and I don't think they're about to vanish in one off season. But he can do basically everything else. Maybe not free throws also. I don't really have a problem with taking Denny in the 5th round. That's what his ADP is right now, but he's on the way up, and I fear that he might hit the 4th before all this is said and done. And at that point, now you've probably gone a little bit too far. You guys know I also really like the Portland Trailblazers. That's a team that's trying to do stuff. Their season win totals at 34.5, which I guess there's this feeling that like last year was a flash in the pan. I think they're going to be a little bit better this year. I know they lost Simons, who was one of their best scorers, but that number at 34.5 over at FanDuel and the FanDuel Sportsbook is, I think, pretty fair. I don't know. Maybe I'm way off base here, but like Drew Holiday to sort of lead the older cats in. Donovan Clingan's going to be a little bit better. I think Blazers might surprise some teams. 34.5. It's higher than the Suns. Yeesh. John Morant is on the way up, 2.5 slots to 38.5. He's a build guy, as we've talked about. You absolutely positively must be in an 8-cat league or, again, punting turnovers. But I just like, if everybody's doing it, then nobody's doing it. If everybody's punting turnovers, you can be the one team that just like pays even the tiniest bit of attention to them, and you can win it a lot of the time, head-to-head or roto. John Morant was 50th in 8-cat last year. There's nothing really wrong with his ADP of 38.5. Like, there's a pathway for him to get there in 8-category leagues. There's not really a pathway for him to get there in 9-cat. I'm more worried about his health. So I'd rather pass on Ja in basically every format because I don't trust him to stay upright. And, like, getting to his ADP is a good case scenario for him. So if you're taking somebody who's a big injury risk or missed games risk, however you want to classify it, you better hope that their ADP is way out in front of where you're drafting them, especially if you're in a punt build Like, John Morant should be way out in front of his ADP at a punt build if you're willing to take that risk. I'm not. Anthony Simons up 2.5 slots to 91.9. You guys guessed it. It's the same crap again. He's a punt field goal guy who was number 66 in that build last year. You don't have to be punting turnovers at least. So, at least there's that element for Simons. Perfectly reasonable spot to draft him if you don't care about field goal percent. If you do, he's probably going to be behind that. I don't know that he's going to do more in Boston than he did in Portland. He got a lot of opportunity with the Blazers, and Boston still has Jaylen Brown and Peyton Pritchard and Derek White. And Simons might slot in front of Derek White in like overall number of field goal attempts, but he sure as crap ain't slotting ahead of Jaylen Brown. Don't be surprised if Simons does almost exactly the same stuff in Boston that he did in Portland, which put him at 110 in straight 9-cat rankings and top 70 in punt field goal rankings. So know thyself. Peyton Pritchard up 2.5 slots to 80.2. We are not there yet, but Pritchard is approaching, I'm going to remove the value from you, good sir. But he was number 79 last year, and his usage rate figures to go up quite a lot. So I'm totally fine with taking Pritchard around 80. Again, value is being trimmed here little by little with Pritchard, but it's not gone yet. So still fine. This move suggests that he's actually probably going in the late 70s as opposed to the early 80s. And again, we're kind of sliding down the razor's edge a little bit now. The earliest I would take Peyton Pritchard is about pick 70. So we're not quite there yet, but we're getting there. And another guy, Avdia, Pritchard, and Josh Giddey. Those are the three guys that are really on the hype train. Giddey's up 2.1 slots to 33.6. That's just going to keep going up because Yahoo just bumped him in their pre-ranks up all the way to the end of the second round. He's number 24 in pre-ranks right now. I would argue maybe the most influential pre-rank move that Yahoo made for their third board, going all the way from already pretty high. He started the pre-ranks at 37, went to 35, now he's at 24. That's a big jump. To take an early rounder and make him an even earlier rounder. So end of third goes to end of second. And again, much like with Pritchard, much like with Avdia, there is a way he gets there. I think I would... I think there's probably going to be a punt turnover thing going on here with Giddey. Down the stretch last year, he was very impressive, but he was at 4 turnovers a game down the stretch. He was number 14 in 9-cat down the stretch, despite the 3.7 turnovers. So, even in 9-cat, he has a chance to get there. But 1.9 steals and 0.7 blocks. Look, I know that Giddey can be a solid steals guy, but I don't think it's going to be that. 30 some odd minutes a game, 1.2, 1.3 steals could happen. I don't want to write those possibilities off. He always looked like he was going to be an okay steals guy, but not a great one. And then this past year, he went on an insane steals run down the stretch. But a lot of guys do, because that's when you play teams that are starting rookie point guards and rookie shooting guards and rookie small forwards and just totally not caring about what happens. And someone like Josh Giddey is just going to grab an extra steal almost every ball game. I think we might have priced him out in 9-cat. In 8-cat, I think he could probably be a second rounder. 9-cat, I don't know about second round. But again, understand what you're drafting against. Maybe you take Josh Giddey at the end of the second round if you took a not horrific turnover guy in the first round. Maybe he pairs up with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander relatively well. You don't get quite as many points, which maybe takes you a little bit off of your big lead in that category. But now you're working on a punt threes build that's pretty freaking good because you've got 2 guards and you're at 15 rebounds and 17 assists per game. That's great. And I expect Giddey to shoot around 80% at the free throw line, so Shai will float you there. And now your turnovers are at 5.2, 5.3, something like that. So maybe that's the direction you go. But, if you're going hard punt. Just try to keep an eye on what your opponents are doing. That's all I'm saying. It's not lost. Not all is lost. So, yeah, I know Giddy's ADP says 33.6, but it's going to head to the second round. Alperen Şengün up again, 1.8 to 17.8. I don't really fully understand this one. I understand a lot of stuff, but Şengün, even if you're rolling -1 rankings, he's still not there. You know, punting free throw, which was his worst category, got him to number 44 last year. Punting turnovers and free throws got him into the third-ish, late third last year. He figures to do about the same amount of stuff. I know Freddie VanVleet being out probably increases a little bit, but Şengün is already at a usage rate of 26 plus. It's hard for a center to go much higher than that. Jokic was at 29.5 if you're like looking at very high usage centers. There isn't a whole lot more that Şengün can do from last year. It's way too early. I'm not taking him in the second round in almost any format. Kevin Durant up 1.8 slots to 23.8. He finally got moved into the second round on Yahoo board, so I expect him to be drafted kind of mid to late second round. I still like him there a lot. I know that he's an injury risk, but if KD gets to 65 games this year, he most likely beats this rank by totals. He almost definitely beats this rank on a per game basis, but he can get there by totals as well. Anything over that is gravy. So like if KD gets to 68, 69 games, he's a pretty big winner this year. He's a first rounder probably in that scenario. So I'm not going to worry too much about like what the peripherals say. He's going to do a ton in Houston. And so I like him at the mid end of the second round. I liked him more when we could get him in the third. So he's another guy that is shaving a little bit of value off of himself. At least some of these other guys are going early enough where I'm like, good. That's another guy that's like mucking up the board so I can get my guys. RJ Barrett up 1.2 slots to 78. I don't understand this one even a tiny bit. When I talk about things that I don't understand, at least with like Şengün, you're looking at it like, all right, I guess, you know, you funnel him into a particular build and Freddie's out and blah, blah, blah. Barrett, I don't get at all because he had, by all accounts, the best possible season he could have had last year because everybody was hurt around him. And now he's one of 4 usage guys in the Raptors starting lineup. I don't think there's a pathway for him to get there. I don't understand this one. He's a points league darling. I get that. But even in points leagues, we're talking about a guy that, where was Barrett in points leagues last year? He was 70th, and he's going to do less. This is a hard no. But sure, please keep going up the board so we don't have to worry about it. You know where you can get great rankings and great commissioner tools? At fantrax.com/oldmansquad. My slow draft that I'm running at Fantrax right now as we speak, waiting for my good friend Adam King to wake up, is in the 9th round out of 10. I said a 10-round, 14-team mock draft up. It's a slow draft where everybody has 2 hours to make a pick. It goes to sleep overnight. You can do so many incredible things at Fantrax that you simply cannot do with the commissioner tools at Yahoo and ESPN and whatever other, supersized, outsized websites there are that are trying weird things. Yahoo's trying to force us all into points leagues. Fantrax isn't going to force you anything. You make the rules at Fantrax. So head there now, fantrax.com/oldmansquad. It's just like Yahoo and ESPN. You can sign up completely for free. There's no obligation to pay a single dime in. They have a treasury tool if you want Fantrax to handle your cash leagues. Outstanding. It's where we've run our listener leagues forever and ever and ever, because you can actually be a commissioner of a Fantrax league and not even be in it. You can just run it from on high. Fantrax.com/oldmansquad. That'll let them know Dan sent you. You're going to enjoy your experience over there. They're continually working to upgrade their UI. That's the only thing that's holding that place back from being the preeminent fantasy location in the universe, because everything else they've got is so much better than the competition. It's crazy, and I'm blown away that more people don't know about it. Desmond Bane went up 1.2 slots to 43.9. He's a perfectly safe 4th rounder. If he gets pushed into the 3rd, I think we've gone too far. But he's also kind of a safe 3rd rounder, because at least you're going to get like a top 55 guy. There's not going to be a deep drop-off, low floor But I also don't think there's almost any upside with Desmond Bain. So if you're hunting upside, that's not the way. And LeBron, not a big jump, but he went up another slot to 18.7. He's now pre-ranked on the turn. So I would expect him to keep going earlier and earlier. And I don't know how I feel about that. I feel like, the problem is that the middle of the second round always sucks. It always sucks. So, like, at a certain point, you've got these guys that are going at the beginning of the second round. Devin Booker's in that range. James Harden's in that range. Tyrese Maxey's in that range. Kevin Durant and or Steph Curry, you could make an argument for that range. Once you're through those guys, it's probably LeBron. Although I don't expect him to be better than top 20 in 9-cat this year. He was number 12 in 8-cat last season, was LeBron. I'm trying to make sure I'm covering both on the show. But I figure he probably takes a small step backwards with the ascendance of skinny Luka and just, another year of wear and tear on the LeBron tires. He's an android. He's a cyborg of some kind. I don't know how he's doing it, but there's going to be very, very small slippages. And he's super old. So 70 games is probably maxing out. I'd rather take LeBron around 18 to 20 as opposed to 12, which is where he's ranked now. I know the ADP says 18.7, but it's earlier than that. It is now. In any event. Here are the guys that are falling on the ADP board. Tyler Hero went down 9 slots to 50.1. He's going to keep falling because he got hurt. And he should go later because you shouldn't draft guys that are injured to start your season. Fair enough. Stephon Castle down 3.1 slots to 109. I'm not really sure why he's falling. I'm not really sure why he was as high as he was to begin with, because he's another guy that has a lot of fantasy stuff that they need to kind of work through. He was he was outside the top 200 in 9-cat last year. He was number 183. Nope, that's not right. Hold on. Let me get the points league ranking up here on Castle. 152 in points leagues in about 27 minutes a game. Spurs got deeper. De'Aaron Fox got healthy. Harper, obviously Wemby. And then they have wings that you could count forever. Devin Vassell, Jeremy Sohan, Champagnie, and on and on and on and on. I don't think Stephon Castle comes close to this rank outside of points leagues. I don't think it's close. Zach Edey fell 2.3 slots to 113.3. That's because we got word that he probably won't be ready to start the season, which is a real pain in the butt. I'm trying to get an exact... So he's set to be evaluated in about 2 weeks. He had multiple ankle sprains in June, and so they're like resetting the ankle. And he's going to be reevaluated, looks like mid-October. So we'll get a better idea on him, hopefully, before you have your fantasy drafts. But right now, that's why Edey's falling, and that's why he should fall. Because if he's going to be injured to start the year, you probably don't take him, which sucks because I was pretty high on Edey before we knew about the reevaluation. Rudy Gobert, down 2 slots to 68.8. Why? Why does everybody hate Gobert so much? Is it because he's a low turnover guy? Is this the impact of 8 versus 9-cat? Because 8-cat last year, he was 76, but like he's in a range on the ranking board where guys are not particularly high turnover dudes anyway. His 8-cat and 9-cat ranks were almost the same last season. 76 and 8-cat, 62 and 9. That's a small difference. And he's, by all accounts, had about as bad a season as he could possibly have. He only blocked 1.4 shots a game. That's basically a career low for Rudy. You throw him back out there for 33 minutes a game this season, I bet that blocks numbers up to 1.6. Maybe higher. I don't know. But I'm just, even a little bit, like, it really doesn't take much to move your rank a lot in this range, and it really doesn't take many blocks to move your rank a lot. Think of it this way. 1.4 blocks a game. He played 72 games last year. And we could look up the totals on Rudy Gobert, but I don't really care to in a pinch. You're talking about around 100 blocks. If he had like one extra high block ball game, that's probably the difference between Rudy being number 62 in 9-cat and being number 52. That's probably it. Maybe not quite that far, but like 57, probably. One good shot blocking game away from being a fifth rounder instead of a sixth rounder last year, who's going by ADP, as we just talked about, at the end of the sixth round. And I'm watching him in drafts go in the seventh. I thought last year was about a bottom barrel performance from Rudy. He's a very safe center in this range. And I love the fact that he's going later because that means we're going to get him in more places. And that's wonderful. Not because I want Rudy Gobert so badly, but because knowing that there's a really easy center you can take in the sixth, seventh round allows you to not overdraft a center earlier. 6 more names before we wrap this thing up. Jared Allen, much like Rudy Gobert, is on the slide. He's down 1.5 slots to 55.5. And much like Rudy Gobert, he's a super safe center to take at 55.5. He was number 53 last year in only 28 minutes a ball game. If Evan Mobley is hurt for any amount of time this coming season, he'll see a higher number of minutes. If the Cavaliers are playing in closer ball games, he'll probably see an extra minute and a half. There is every reason to think that with Jared Allen, your floor is 65, which makes him an extraordinarily safe pick in the fifth round. That's why we call this zone in the draft the Jared Allen corridor, because it's just safe and easy. Much like Gobert, he's not as good in 8-cat as he is in 9. And because he's ranked a little bit higher than Rudy was, he does slide more in 8-cat. Jared Allen was number 69 in 8-category leagues. So I get it. If you don't want him in the fifth round, if you're in a punt turnover team, okay, that's fine. You could let somebody else take him. But if you have any inclination, and by the way, you could take Jared Allen here and suddenly maybe you're not a full punt turnover team anymore. Just saying, something to think about in the back of your mind. He's just such an easy grab in this range. Safe. No huge upside there either, though. LaMelo Ball down 1.4 slots to 28.1. I'm not touching LaMelo until he shows me he can make it through a season. I'm totally comfortable with the fact that if he makes it through a year and plays well, then we miss out on a possible win in the third round. I don't care. I don't care. We're always going to miss out on something. You can't have every winner in fantasy because there's multiple winners per round. You're not going to get every single one of them. I am not here to tell you that there's no chance LaMelo Ball can do it. There's a chance he can do it. Of course. And someone's going to take that shot. It's just not going to be me. And that person can celebrate all the way to the bank that they finally got it right on LaMelo after taking the L on LaMelo for 3 consecutive seasons. I'm just not willing to be the guy who's taking another risk in the third round. Second round, third round, whatever. I'm not going to do it. If we learned anything over this past fantasy season, it's that the only surefire way to make your season hard, difficult, is to have somebody in the first 3 rounds that doesn't play. You can come back from almost everything else in fantasy basketball. A first rounder who's like a third rounder, you can come back from that as long as they play. What you can't come back from is a second rounder that gives you nothing, that plays 35 games. You can't. Not if you're in a good league. You might be able to beat some sort of dinkle leagues. That's right, dinkle leagues. Jalen Brunson down 1.2 slots to 22.9. He should keep going. I like Jalen Brunson. That's the funny thing, too. I talk about him like I don't like him, but I love Jalen Brunson's fantasy game. He's just way overdrafted because he scores. It's a fairly straightforward thing that goes on. He scores 26 points a game, so everybody takes him way too early. The rest of his stuff looks like an old man squad kind of guy. High field goal percent guard with good assists and not that high turnovers. Everything about Jalen Brunson suggests he should be a guy who slips in drafts, except that he scores 26 points a game, so he won't slip in drafts. So he's going too early. Simple as that. He's number 50 in 9-cat. He was about 10 slots earlier than that in 8-cat last year, and it's not going to get any better. He's already has a usage rate up around 30. It's not going anywhere. He's not going to magically become a guy who hits 4 3-pointers a game and gets 1.3 steals. That's the stuff that he needs to fix if he wants to get into that next rung. He needs to be an elite 3-point guy or a better steals guy. That's how he gets to the next rung. Or if he starts hitting like 89% of his free throws instead of 82, but there's been no real sign that that's coming for Brunson. Not frankly, there's been no sign that any of this other stuff is coming for Brunson. I think you get what you get with this dude, which is, again, a very good fantasy player, but not second round good. So let's keep slipping. I would take Brunson late third. You get a lot of points and assists and not a guy who turns it over that a ton if he slides to like 30, but I don't think that's going to happen. Before we get to our final three names, a reminder that this show is brought to you by the HOF app and hofapp.com, which you can use today to make smarter bets. It is a really impressive and very powerful tool that allows you to see the odds, not just the odds that like sports books are giving out, but the odds of things happening before they happen. It uses the power of projection and analytics to look at tens of thousands of different outcomes of a game and let you know what the most likely scenarios are of scores, prop bets. I should say totals as well, since that goes hand in hand with scores. And the NBA, they're going to get fired up here in the next couple of weeks. Right now, you can use the HOF app to check out NFL and baseball and, again, whatever's going on right now. So I'm looking at it, and I can't put it on the screen because I have the list of ADP movers on the screen. But my favorite thing to do over on the HOF app is to look at the trends bar. So you can see what's been happening, who's been hot, who's been cold. Those things tend to obviously level out a little bit. But if you understand like when certain things are happening and then compare that to the probability that they're going to happen again, you can see the arc. And the beauty of this app is it's going to look at defenses, it's going to look at offenses, it's going to do all that comparison stuff for you tens of thousands of times through modeling. You don't have to do it anymore. They also have this really fun tool called the Parlay Optimizer. I'm not a parlay guy. I'm not going to tell you have to get down on it, but if you're already doing them, you should absolutely use the HOF app's Parlay Optimizer because it's going to tell you which leg of your parlay is the weakest based on their projections. And you can yank that one out, have a better chance to win the other 5 legs on your 6-teamer or whatever you're building over there. So check out the HOF app today. And the other reason why is because I can get you a sweet promo. Use code SQUAD, got that? And get a 7-day free trial and 50% off your first month with code SQUAD. Just download the HOF app. It's free to download. iOS, Android, whatever, and enter code SQUAD, and you're all set. 7-day free trial, 50% off the first month after that case, or cancel whenever you like with no obligation. HOF app. Check it out today. And the last 3 names for us to cover on the ADP show. Donovan Mitchell, down 1 slot to 24.3. Please keep falling, Spida. Please keep falling. If I can get him in the 3rd round, I'm all over Donovan Mitchell in the 3rd. I think last year was, again, about as bad as it was going to get for him. I see Donovan Mitchell getting back into the 2nd round this season, probably from free throw percent alone, but maybe an uptick in steals or field goal percent or just generally playing more because the Cavs, I expect to be in more competitive games this season as teams now have kind of had a chance to sort them out and Darius Garland being out to start the year. And there's going to be a letdown after being as good as they were in the regular season last year. So give me Donovan Mitchell in the 3rd round. Anywhere in the 3rd, I'm good with him. I think that's a fun pick. Kawhi Leonard, not a big move, down from 43 to 43.9, but I just wanted to highlight the fact that even when he comes into a season, by all accounts, healthy, he's still headed down the board. We've heard nothing yet to indicate that he's going to be suspended for this coming season, and until I do, I'm not going to change my projections on Kawhi, which has him sitting out back-to-backs. So putting him somewhere in that 68 game range, plus whatever little nagging injuries come beyond that. I'm not here to tell you that it's going to be headache free. There will be plenty of headaches. But what I am telling you is that a healthy Kawhi Leonard, and you guys probably don't even need me to tell you this, a healthy Kawhi Leonard is a top 5 fantasy player. He's a low turnovers guy who has the actual potential to be a positive in 9 out of 9 categories. He's literally the only player in the NBA that does that or gets close to that annually. The only one. There are guys that go 8 out of 8 sometimes, but there's basically nobody who goes 9 for 9. And Kawhi Leonard this last year was about 0.2 blocks per game from doing it again. And that, when you're a top 5 fantasy player, you can miss a lot of games and still have a totals rank in the 20s or higher. And if I can get Kawhi in the 40s, that gives you a lot of wiggle room. A lot of wiggle room. And you can play this game by looking at the board last year. Victor Wembanyama, all right, maybe we're going a little high on that one. Anthony Davis was number 4 last year and played in 51 ball games. He missed a lot of basketball last season. You know what his totals rank was? You know what Kawhi's ADP is? 39. Yeah, I know. Kawhi's getting drafted later than that. He only needs to get to 50 games to most likely hit this by totals. And Amen Thompson, I put on this board because he fell 0.7 slots. I couldn't figure out why that was happening. Well, it's not going to happen anymore. Yahoo just jacked him up the board in a last-second tweak. They moved him. He was at like 39. They jumped him back up to 31. So I would expect Thompson to start moving higher. It's Freddie VanVleet injury related. Look for his ADP to head the other way. And I don't even know why I put him on here. Mostly just to say to everybody, hey, congrats if you already got Amen Thompson in a draft, because he probably not going to get him anymore. He's a guy who's probably going to end up getting overdrafted this year now with this latest bump. I loved him in the 3rd. I don't know that I love him in the 2nd round. Punting free throws, you love him in the 2nd round. There are some very interesting builds where he makes sense in the 2nd round. But straight 9 cat, we've probably gone a little bit too high. Hopefully I did enough to get you guys to hit that subscribe button. However you're taking in the content, please subscribe to the Old Man Squad channel. Hit that like button if you're watching on YouTube. So drop a 5-star review if you're listening to the pod after the fact. I am Dan Besbris at DanBesbris on the Twitters. Old Man Squad is the network feed. You can check them out on the Twitters as well. This show is brought to you by FanDuel, Fantrax, the HOF app, and by the number 4. I'm Dan Besbris. Have a lovely, however long it is between this and the next show that I hope you'll listen to that we're doing here at Old Man Squad. Subscribe on the way out. I know I told you twice already, but here's another one, and I'll see you guys soon. So long for now.